This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Welcome to the Human Animal Connection Show, where we believe we can communicate with all animals. Join us as we explore the 33 principles and healing methods of the human-animal connection. As animal lovers, we know that you share our commitment to making the world a kinder place for all creatures. Together, let's embrace the transformative healing power of the human-animal connection.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Human Animal Connection Show. I am your host, Michael Overly, and I'm with Jeannie Joseph. And oh, do we have something to talk about today? Jeannie, let's get into this.
Yeah, normally, we talk about these warm and fuzzy stories and happy things, but today we're going to dive into some of the tougher ethical questions about humans and animals and how we're doing. And we all know it's not that great on the human side. And I'll just start with a quote. This is from Thomas Jefferson, and he says, "Until we stop harming all other living beings, we are still savages." Yeah. So unfortunately, there is a bit of harm going on. No more than a bit. There's a lot of harm that goes on to animals between humans. And I'm not saying that we can stop all of it or stop all of it instantly, but we can look at it and see, well, what is one thing we can do? Like you might pick an area and say, well, I'm worried about the monarch butterflies. I'm going to plant milkweed in my yard or something. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't mean that we have to save all the animals. I mean, nobody can save all the animals, but as a culture, if we were to adopt the notion that we need to do better, we will. Things do change. Things have changed. It used to be chickens were in these ridiculously horrible wire cages that hurt their feet. And now, there's some rules about that. And there's a movement towards free range chickens, and people will buy the eggs. It'll cost a little bit more with the free range chickens. So the marketplace has some control over these things. The fact that Walmart has started carrying free range chickens now because people want to buy them. So that's, there's things that we can do. And so that's, while we're talking about some things that are a little depressing in this show, in this episode, hopefully it's to get people back into thinking about being inspired to do something. And I just want to start with a quote from Brother David Seindel-Rast and his definition of ethics. And he said, "Ethics is how we behave when we decide that we belong together." So when we care about the familyness or the connections between each other, and the idea that this is not just short term, then we treat each other better. And so that's what I think we need to bring into our humans to animals relationships. Most of the people listening to this show are people who are animal lovers and doing very good things to at least one animal, if not more. And that's a wonderful thing. But we need to kind of think a little bit bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to bring that up right before your quote. How, and this is not judgment or shame towards anyone, because this is a place I found myself in. So if I love my dog so much and I feel connected to my dog in this way, and that we're all one, well, then how can I eat bacon or a steak or, and oh my God, I really thought about that because of how I was raised, how, humans here and animals here and but dogs are different, and
right.
We can actually create those divisions so that they make sense for us or make us feel better.
Yeah.
For anyone out there who's listening, there's no shame or blame, no finger pointing, but maybe how can you do one tiny bit better?
Right. If you're eating meat, how can you eat less meat? Or how can you eat meat that's raised more humanely or whatever? I mean, I think it's really important not to tell people what to do, because that never works. It's like saying, eat your broccoli. Nobody wants to do it. Clean up your room. Nobody wants to do it. But I think that we all have to find what's the right choice for each of us in terms of those dichotomies, because they do create conflict. They do create tension in our system. Yeah. And I want to tell you, well, since we're talking about beef, I'll tell you a story about a cow.
Okay.
And this was a veterinarian named Dr. Cheever, and this story was in Best Friends magazine. And I just think it's so important to tell other people. But this was in upstate New York, and a milk cow was going to give birth. And, the farmer was expecting a certain amount of milk per day. And the cow gave birth in the middle of the night out in the pasture or out in the field, wherever it was, and came back and brought the farmer the one calf, but she wasn't producing milk. And so they brought in the veterinarian. Dr. Cheever came in, and they discovered that the cow had had 2 calves, and she hid one at the edge of the property, and she was taking care of the one calf. So she gave the farmer one, and she kept one for herself. So she understood that if she had kept 2 calves, that it would have been suspicious. So she gave the farmer one, knowing what happens to calves. They don't last, right? So she took care of one calf and raised it in secret, feeding and tending to it at the edge of the forest, and gave one to the farmer. And so when you think about that, she made a strategic decision. She understood what happens to calves that get given back to the farmer. The farmer takes the calf, and she understood that she couldn't take both, that she had to choose one. So it was like a Sophie's choice for cows. And, this veterinarian, this was amazing to her, because she wasn't somebody who thought about these kinds of things normally, but it really opened her eyes that there's so much more going on behind those beautiful cow eyes than meets the eye, because this cow thought all of this through, where she needed to hide the cow, that she needed to hide the cow, that she should only hide one cow, that she had to pick one and not 2. All of this is all stuff that we would attribute to a human brain. And yet here's this cow making all of these choices. And so when we hear stories like that, we have to really say, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We get so stuck in our heads. We think we're top of the food chain,
right?
When in reality, if we didn't have our tools and our guns and or clothing, we would have been taken out a long time ago.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
It's been kind of uneven for a long time. And I think it can be overwhelming as caring human beings. People who listen to the show are compassionate, empathetic people. And it can be daunting when you think about all the problems out there. So my suggestion when people tell me it's daunting is, yes, it's daunting. Pick one area where you can have an impact. And whether that's you're donating to a cause, whether that's you're doing volunteer work, whether that's you're educating people, spreading the message, or taking action. Like, for example, with the monarch butterflies, that in the last 20 years, the Environmental Defense Fund has said that we've lost 95% of the monarch butterflies. And, these are the beautiful black and orange butterflies that fly 3,000 miles for their migration, amazing, right? And so one simple thing we can do is plant milkweed. And I need to find out if we could, how to do that, because that's something I'd like to do. I don't know if we can do it in Arizona. I don't know how hard it is to grow milkweed, but schools and churches and offices. And there's one building in New York City that has constructed the building so that it's a butterfly habitat where they can do this. And you can see the outside. There's all these butterflies flying around in this, what would be the front-facing windows of the building. And it's a butterfly habitat. So if people had the consciousness, intention, desire, commitment, willingness to do things can be done. We can't fix all the problems. We can't bring back the animals that are already extinct, but we can do something. We can do one thing. So that's, I think what helps people to think in terms of what's the one thing I could do. Like one of the charities that I support is not even in this country. It's called Animals Asia, and they help rescue the moon bears, which are small bears that, unfortunately, the superstition has been that their bile helps men to become more virile. And that's not true, but that's resulted in them being in cages their entire life with no medical attention, no sunlight, no friendship, no comfort, nothing. They have rescued over 700 bears, and they've been instrumental in getting the laws changed in Vietnam to make this practice less likely to continue. So they've done a lot, and it's through education and people helping in whatever way, they can, through donations, through spreading the word, anything that you can do to just make it a little bit of a better place for animals. And it helps us feel better about ourselves and the world when we do that.
Absolutely. And you don't have to foster dogs, right? You don't have to become a trainer or a facilitator in any way. As you mentioned before, support a cause that feels good to you.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million nonprofits out there that are helping
yeah.
in some fashion.
Right.
Just pick one and send them a few dollars. And maybe
I mean, it might be a species that you care about. Like I care a lot about donkeys, so I support organizations that rescue donkeys and the moon bears and, different things. And then I'll go and volunteer at the shelter working with the dogs. We have a foster dog laying at my feet right now, so there's different ways that we can help. And there's 500 dogs right now in the shelter. All 5 of them need to be in a house as nice as mine. What I mean by nice is not fancy, but in terms of the love and the understanding of dog nature, so it's it's like heaven for dogs here because of all that good stuff. So I can't, there's 499 that I didn't help, but there's one that I am helping. So, well, I mean, it depends. Some people are big thinkers and they can think through the big problems. Like one of the things like lab animals, right? Let's talk about that. I mean, horrible what goes on in labs. And you know what's the worst thing about labs is that 95% of the studies that are proven safe on animals are not safe. All that medication and all that stuff is not safe when they go to human trials, meaning animal trials don't work. They are not effective. They are not scientific. They are anti-scientific because humans and animals are different. And what medication works, how it works with an animal may be very different for how it works for a human. So I'm not saying that all animal testing has to be eliminated, but if it's going to exist, it has to be different and it has to be less, because most of these things do, like, for example, in the cosmetics industry, it's not required that you do animal testing. These cosmetics companies just do it. You know what I mean? They just do it because they can, not because it's good. It's not good for the humans. You know what I mean? It doesn't really prove anything. And so a lot of rabbits are suffering getting all this makeup on their face. And I don't know why they use rabbits for that, but it's horrible when you see them trapped in these little contraptions that hold them absolutely entirely still, which is the last thing a rabbit wants, is to be contained like that. And it's not even necessary. So like little things like buying products that are not animal tested, because there's no requirement for these products, these cosmetic products, to be animal tested. So use your pocketbook to make sure that you're buying products that aren't. Yeah.
Vote with your dollar, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's always held true.
Right.
We forget that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think people probably need a little break right now.
So, I do.
I know. So we're going to take a short break.
Okay. See you soon.
Hey, friends, if you like what you're hearing and want to learn more, check out Dr. Joseph's book, The Human-Animal Connection, Deepening Relationships with Animals and Ourselves. Or visit the website, thehumananimalconnection.org, to book an online consultation. Thank you for loving animals. Now back to the show.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
All right. Hey, welcome back, folks. I know this is a tough one, so thanks for sticking with this, but this is really important information to have. And if it makes you uncomfortable or makes you feel something a little bit, then that's a good thing, right? Because we can all do better, including myself. So thank you for being here.
Yeah. I mean, the discomfort is the birth process, is the growth process, is the life process. So forgive us for talking about things that I don't want to talk about and you probably don't want to hear, but it's important that we get proactive, that we say, okay, you know what? I can't solve all the problems. I'm going to address one of them. I'm going to educate people, or I'm going to donate to a cause, or I'm going to volunteer, or whatever it is, we can do something. And I just want to say one thing about the lab animals for a moment. One of the animals that are often used in dog testing are beagles, because they're so sweet and gentle and they don't fight back and docile. But a lot of these animals are euthanized after the end of the studies and not even given a chance to be adopted. And the military does a lot of this. Kittens get killed by the military, and we can. This is taxpayer money, and usually experiments we don't even hear about. So we need to vote for people who have better policies and who are willing to support animal welfare policies. So there are some politicians who care a lot about this, and we can support those that do and let the ones that don't know that they really should be. So there's lots of ways that we can get involved depending upon your style. But one of the things I want to say about lab animals is that especially with the social animals, they are often kept in solitary cages, which is like on top of all the horror that they go through. And a lot of these experiments are painful and destructive and horrific. But on top of everything else, they keep them separate where they have no connection with their species. And for social animals, it's like solitary confinement for humans. It's really cruel, and it doesn't have to be like that. So there's this one lab in Japan. Forgive me for forgetting the guy's name who set this lab up, but he's doing studies with chimpanzees. But the way he set up his study is that they have the option. They can go play with their friends and come back in, do the study, get a treat, and go back out and play with their friends. So they choose when they want to participate in the research, and they can choose when they want to be social. And that takes a little bit more effort than just putting them in individual cages. But you know what? That should be the bottom line, is that social animals should have the choice of when to engage and when not to engage. Even if it's like certain hours that are studies versus the freedom of choice, which is wonderful in this primate lab. So in this primate lab, what they're testing is animals have, I think it's called idiopathic memories, meaning that they can see 10 numbers on a screen, all random numbers, 10 numbers all jumbled all around on a screen for like I think a second or maybe less, but very short. And they can remember it exactly. They can put all the numbers back in the right spots. And humans can do maybe 3 numbers. So the chimpanzees, there's no human who's been able to outsmart the chimpanzee on this test. And even if they get distracted, like you said, make some noise over here, and they look away from the screen, they still come back and put all the numbers in the right place, or almost all, but they do it at a rate that's faster and more accurate than humans. And so that's just an example of one of the ways that we should respect chimpanzee intelligence. Here's a thing that they can do that we can't really do. Of course, there are things we can do that they can't do, but there are things that they can do that we can't do, pattern recognition. And pigeons have been taught to detect hairline fractures on X-rays with an accuracy that equals the medical professionals. So I like to tell people that story because pigeons never get a lot of respect. I mean, Tesla respected them. Nicholas Tesla, not the Elon Musk Tesla, but the Nicholas Tesla used to study pigeons and feed them and watch them, and Leonardo da Vinci did. So anyway, I like to tell the stories about pigeons because they don't get a lot of respect in our world, and they really should, because they've got some extraordinary visual abilities. They can be trained to detect metastasized cancer on cells on slides. When they show them slides, they can peck and they'll say, this is cancer, this is not cancer. It's just amazing what they can do. So yeah, I think like even if we are forced to have some laboratory animal experiments, we should have less. We should have animals have as much freedom as choice as we can possibly give them, including with social animals, to have some time where they get to be with their species. So that's an example of how we're not going to be able to eliminate laboratory animal experiments with a wave of our hands, but we can at least advocate for more humane methods. But again, remembering that 95% of the tests that pass with animal studies are not going to pass with human studies. So I think we really have to keep looking for better methods of scientific testing, which there's an organization called NAVS, N-A-V-S, and that is National Anti-Vivisection Society. And they are really, really working on this issue. And they give grants to graduate students who have developed alternative testing methods that are don't involve animal testing and are very reliable and very scientific and cost effective and don't involve using any animals. So they are a wonderful organization. There are a couple other organizations that support that too, but NAVS is one of the ones that I support. So I really think that this is so important, because when I was in high school and it was time to dissect the frog, I was totally traumatized. I couldn't do it. I couldn't handle it. And I got flunked for that portion of the program. And I had an interest in medical science and other things. I was thinking of going in that direction until that class, but that class made me say, no, I'm not gonna, it can turn off a lot of kids to that kind of science and medicine. And NAVS is they've developed a whole computer program where you can do all of this stuff with the frogs without touching a frog. Okay, so it's more economical, it's more ethical, it's safer, because I think let me see, I think I have some statistics about the frogs. Yeah, there's 6 to 10 million frogs captured and killed and sent to classrooms in the US. That's a lot of frogs. And only in about 18 states will they allow students to opt out of doing live vivisection or, vivisection on a real frog. But these computer programs are more effective. They teach better. They give you much more views and much more understanding. So you don't have to rip a frog to shreds to learn, and that's something that there are some teachers who are so hung up on, well, we've always done it this way. Why shouldn't we do it this way? And they need to be educated. And this is something that we need to help people understand, that there are alternatives to cruelty. Cruelty is not the only option. It may be the option that's been used, but it's not necessarily the option that should continue. And so the frogs are just one example of that.
What came to mind was, just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that, I know this is not a happy-go-lucky show, but if it gets people thinking and it gets people willing to take the action that they find appropriate for them, we will have done our service. We will have done the work that we needed to do, because we need to get people thinking and talking and working together on thinking about creative ways to change these cruel methods and to look at alternatives that are not cruel.
Yeah. Now, I know you've got some other statistics as well.
No, I don't have any more.
You don't anymore?
I don't know.
I thought we did.
The farm animals. Thank you. I conveniently forgot. Yeah. It's
a good to finish on.
Yeah, it's a good old hefty one. Well, okay, so
go for it.
All right. It's horrible. How many farm animals do you think are slaughtered for food each year?
Billions.
Yeah. 80 billion with a B. Sorry if I popped the microphone, but 80 billion with a B. 80 billion farm animals. So chickens and cows and, all of that, just all of that. It's really, really awful, really awful. And when it comes to fish, it's more. It's anywhere from 50 to 160 billion farm fish who live in terrible conditions. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They have to swim in like this maze. It's horrible. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing that a fish would ever want for themselves. I mean, the only thing they have is water, but they're so unhealthy because they're swimming in this, they're stressed. I mean, it's been shown that fish feel stress, and so they get stressed, and then they have to give them more chemicals to make them, and then there's more crap in the water. It's just horrible what goes on. It's really awful. I hate it. It's so horrible. So, this is some of the problems that we have in our human world that we have created as a race. We have made these problems. And of course, we're trying to give people good food, and we just have to find ways that we can do both. How can we give people healthy, nourishing food that don't involve this level of treatment of animals? Yeah.
Good question. I'll see how I can do a tiny bit better today.
No, everyone just needs to just do it a little better, so it's like, find the steps that feel good to you to do. Don't do something that's like a should, or identify the organizations that are doing the work that you really admire. And you got to look beyond their slick brochure, you got to do your research, because everybody can make a nice website or a nice mailer or whatever. But I don't open anything that has a tortured animal on the front. I just throw those in the trash, because I don't support those organizations that use horror and fear. I look for organizations that are more respectful of the person opening the envelope. So that's just me. But, people need to just find whatever things that, like one of the organizations, it's Heifer. Maybe I have it wrong. HEI. The people.
Yeah, Heifer International.
Heifer. Thank you, Heifer. I couldn't think of it. Yeah, so you can buy a cow or a part of a cow, meaning you pay for half and someone else pays for half. Not that you send half a cow. Okay, so you can send a cow to a country, a place that really needs it, and people's lives change when they get a cow, and they get better milk, and they get better nutrition, and then the family is more freed, and the girls can go to school, and all kinds of things happen from just getting a cow or getting chickens or getting rabbits. And they teach them how to work with the animals. They don't just hand them a chicken and leave. They teach them about animal husbandry and the things that they need to know. And sometimes they breed, and then they can share it with other people, and whole villages have changed. So I find that organization very appealing, but that's me. There are different organizations doing different things. So what is it that appeals to you? Like, do you have any organizations, Michael, that you support or?
Yeah. So I support the Street Dog Coalition.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
I know the founder, actually, personally, he's a friend of mine. So
that helps,
The Street Dog Coalition helps provide veterinary services to people who can't afford it. Typically homeless, indigent people, sometimes people on really fixed limited incomes. But they host clinics in a number of places around town. It started here in Fort Collins. Now they're in 60 cities. So veterinarians all over the place are picking up the mantle for this. And currently, as this is being recorded, John Geller, who runs Street Dog, is in Ukraine again.
Wow.
Helping take care of the animals that are coming across the border.
Wow.
Yeah, he's been there before. He has a whole gigantic trailer full of medications and equipment and everything that his foundation put together and shipped over there.
Wow. That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. We'll do a show on that, on the work of Street Dog and him. I mean, sometimes just one person starting something can then spread to 60 other cities and other countries. And oh my God, that rafter is like the size of my arms outstretched. That's how big it is flying through the sky, right? Sorry, just tangents.
I love it. I'm the same way. So
yeah, but we will do a show just on that because one person can make a big difference. You'd be surprised the things or if you can get together with a couple of friends and just work with the feral cats in your area or whatever, trap, neuter, and release, where you take those cats and take them in and get them fixed, neutered, and then they go back to their environment. So, there's a lot of things you can do. What we don't want to do is get people feeling passive that, the situation's so terrible, I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to go put my head in the sand, So I think it's important to hear these stories about what people are doing. So churches that grow milkweed in their yards and people who do other things that just help. And we can make a difference if we take good action, right action.
Yeah. And you don't have to try and save the world, folks.
Right.
Just take one tiny step, do one tiny thing.
Yeah.
That's it. If it feels right to you.
That's right. And if nothing else, just send money to the organizations who are doing it out in the field.
Yeah. You don't have to directly participate. As Gina said, send money to someone who you think is doing amazing work in the world.
Yeah. Make sure that they are. But it can really, because sometimes those organizations, they need money to continue and we can help them. So, and we're one of those organizations. We're a nonprofit. You can go to our website, thehumananimalconnection.org, and help us with our veteran program or our high school program where we bring trained therapy dogs in to help. So if you would like to support us in our work, we would be delighted.
Love it.
Yeah. Until then, if you would like to read our book, The Human Animal Connection, it's online and it's also now online in audio. So you can listen to our book. Isn't that exciting? Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Michael. And thanks everyone for tuning in, being with us today. We hope you'll be with us again soon.
Aloha for now.
Aloha for now.
Thank you for tuning in to the Human Animal Connection Show. Please visit our website, thehumananimalconnection.org. There you can sign up for our free email newsletter, book a consultation, or check out our blogs and resources. Our best-selling book, The Human Animal Connection, is available on Amazon, and your donation of any amount keeps our nonprofit organization providing life-changing services. You can reach Michael Overley, author of Let Your Dog Lead, Musings on How to Create an Exceptional Life, on his website, fdogsandmen.com, or email michael@dogsandmen.com.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.